Hello, everybody. I am Ben from Team Panic, and I am here with Tom of NHRL Paws and Mouse Mouse fame. How's it going, Tom?
It's going great. How are you doing today?
I am doing really, really well because we get to talk about some amazing fights that happened at NHRL. And before we jump into this, a huge thank you to you for allowing me to even do this. Like, I have been a fan of Paws since it first popped up at NHRL. So the fact that you were like, yes, come and build a mini bot, I was just like, dying over here. I so grateful, really.
Oh, I was so glad to have you on the team. We both had developed squeaky hammer robots at the same time, and neither of us knew we were doing it.
Oh, I know. That was just like amazing when that popped up that you had taken Paws with a squeaky hammer to NHRL the same weekend I released Squeak on the world. That was just beautiful. It was meant to
So,
happen, obviously.
exactly.
Hello, everybody. I am Ben from Team Panic. So, of course, this is going to be Pawsitively Hysterical's fights at NHRL, along with Squeakamus Maximus, my 1 pound mini bot, just to add a little bit more squeak into Paws and your running of Paws. So, did you have to do anything really to get Paws ready for this event?
Um, I really didn't have to do anything to get Paws ready for this event. Um, it was the exact same condition as it was from the previous event, partially because I left it behind at NHRL on purpose just so I wouldn't touch it.
I mean,
So I
when I was touring around, I think I saw about 5 paws in various different rooms around the building. So,
They have a few of them in different conditions.
oh yeah, I mean, I think there was one in the like staff only area up in a break room somewhere. I think
I
that's the
haven't seen that
bouquet
one.
version of paws.
Oh yeah. I know Evil Twin was sitting on the front desk as soon as you went in the front door.
Yes, yes, Evil Twin was there, and there was a couple in the museum as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think the broken one is there too.
yes, yeah, the really busted ones.
Oh, that's the one that Hamshake got a hold of. And the
Mm.
whole bot was printed out of PLA.
Oh,
So it was gonna happen and it could not have happened, by a cooler bot than
right, yeah.
Hamshake.
I mean, that's it. If you're going to be torn apart, you've got to be torn apart by a robot like Handshake.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna let him keep going. I wanted to keep hitting him until there was nothing left.
Well, hey, look, I mean, at that point, you needed to reprint the robot anyway, so why not, right?
Yeah. I mean, it started out as PLA with, just regular standard PLA settings with like 25% infill
Oh,
and like maybe like 2 or 3 mil walls.
yeah,
And then
that's not a lot of strength.
I still ended up winning a fight at that event somehow.
Hey, there you go. I mean, that was the cat paw like stamp version, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, there was my second fight. The was against a bot, and they spun up their weapon, went straight into me. They hit the front corner. It broke a chunk off me, and it broke their weapon at the same time. And so I was chasing them around, and we ended up winning a split decision.
I mean, that's you somehow got like bulletproof PLA. I don't understand how that works, but
Apparently. And the next version was solid PLA plus,
mhm.
which was a little better. Um, and the next one I wanted to do was a mix of PLA plus and TPU. Because the TPU I was just using the regular and it was too floppy.
Mm.
So the front had to be the PLA plus. Um, and that was when I was testing cheaper servos and they just didn't have the walking power. I think that was
You
the
are
bouquet version.
you are pushing servos kind of to the limit of what they should be doing, I think. So,
Yeah. And then there was Evil Twin. Evil Twin, I found out a lot of things right to do with pause. It was all the 98A TPU, so I didn't need any PLA anywhere. And then the bottom and top, I ended up going with carbon fiber.
That's going to
Um,
give some strength for sure.
yeah, it was nice and rigid. I found a perfect servo for the top that was just easily repeat purchasable on Amazon.
That is handy. Spares are always a good idea.
And so pretty much any pause I've built after that, I use the exact same drive servo, and it moves great now. Um, the I ended up upgrading the weapon arm servo too for uh, I'm not gonna say why, but in our first fight it comes in handy.
Speaking of that first fight, we should jump into that. Of course, you were using an old version of Pause. This is the one that had the beta bar on it, which the best ever use of a beta bar, I have to say, because that was fantastic. But yeah, so hastily attached a squeaky hammer to it on the morning of the event, right?
Yeah, my wife attached it with 3 zip ties.
Yeah, and she did a good job too, really.
Yeah, it stayed on way longer than I thought it was.
And it got a decent number of squeaks out too. Like that's some good zip tying right there.
She's got a hidden talent for just little things like that that end up being perfect. Because she's also the one who made the eyebrows for Revenge of Mouse Mouse.
Oh, okay. That is a handy talent to have in a bot builder.
Yes, she can just somehow just out of nowhere and it'll just be perfect and she doesn't even expect it.
Hey, look, when it happens, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's talk about this first fight. We are going to talk about Pause versus Cha Cha Taken, which is conveniently your background right now. I notice.
It is, right?
Right
Back
there.
there.
Yeah. So these fights are obviously available on NHRL's YouTube channel. There'll be a link in the description down below to the full stream, and I'll try and include timestamps as well if you want to go and watch these without the two of us yammering over top, because we're just going to talk over top of these. Most of you out there have probably seen these fights already, so the bit that we can add is kind of our thoughts and opinions and feelings about how the fight is going in real time as we watch it effectively.
We're going to go to cage two.
And
my goodness,
so
Luke.
this is
Chris,
the
get
start of
ready
our
for
fight. I
action
love
here with
that
Pawsitively
it
Hysterical,
doesn't matter who's commentating, they're
which,
always
is
excited
bringing
for a
back
pause fight.
The squeaky
Yeah.
hammer, Chris.
I wish they would have showed it going across to the corner.
It's
Yeah.
certainly one of the loudest.
I took the foam off the turning pad so it sounds so much louder when it stomps across the arena.
Oh, the stomping is really good now, like, and it's just menacing almost. And this is, yeah, it was interesting that Cha Cha Slide really did seem to have mobility issues early in this fight. Like,
Yeah.
like even now, we're 10 seconds in.
Right here, I think my at the beginning, my weapon was getting stuck on my leg.
Oh,
And then I finally get moving.
yeah. Your servo certainly worked better than the like blue shitty motor that I was running in the mini bot. You've got just like a lot more speed and get some good sound out of the hammer.
Hysterical is shocking, Chris.
It was just a blur.
Wow.
I like that you can hear the squeaks.
Yes, you really can.
Top armor. Oh,
One of my favorite ones is one of these where I put the hammer down, then you squeak my hammer.
Just fighting to hammer away at the top of Cha Cha Taken.
But yeah, it took, personally, it took so long to build a robot that you could hear the squeaks outside the arena, so to have them on camera on stream is just beautiful.
The sound of the stomping is so loud.
I kept trying not to stomp on you.
I was trying to keep out of your way, but also I did kind of design the robot that it should have been able to take a stomp.
combo from
Maybe.
Pawsitively Hysterical descending on Cha Cha Taken like a pride of lions.
I was having so much trouble with my drive, because the motors I put in for this one were like 75 or 100 to 1 or something, so they were so slow. They were also backwards on the stick, which did not help.
They say a cat always lands on its feet.
Yeah, so there's a couple of times you see me like square up and then just drive backwards, and that's because I was literally controlling the robot backwards.
Failed to land even a single lift here.
Yeah, that back there was the first time I'd ever self-righted with Paws.
Yeah, and that was really cool. Also, I was like,
These competing
the thing that I was
squeaky
surprised by is even when I was like right up in his mouth and he got the lift, he couldn't lift the 1 pound mini bot. Like,
has picked up every single point on the judges card.
and just brutal hammering there.
If you watch the gears here in a second, they get hung up here,
Oh, yeah.
and then right there, the gears become detached.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just all drive.
Well, you've got spin drive.
Yeah. And they kept engaging, so it doesn't really look that obvious. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to scooch a little bit.
I mean, they also have had drive issues this whole time and really can't leave the hammer range anyway.
Yeah. I was, when I started seeing it not
If
move,
I had 9 lives, I just used 8
and
of
I was
them.
like, that's when I started looking at the clock, and I never look at the clock.
Tom Farkas,
And
our
I'm
last
just like,
year's
oh,
Rookie
please
of the
don't count
year.
me out.
Yeah.
Yes.
For introducing
I mean,
the
look,
world
we
to
both
Pawsitively
survived that
Hysterical.
fight. Actually pretty well, really. Especially considering how you lost your gears, and that point where you pointed it out,
this is
those
brutal.
gears, you could see the gears skipping on stream.
That hammer is that fast, Chris.
They're all PLA,
Wow.
or not PLA, they're TPU, which
Delightful.
has been a
All right, we're gonna head over to cage 3 here.
a blessing in disguise, because when there's too much torque and something gets caught, they skip instead of just burning out the servo.
Yeah, so that is a good thing about TPU gears.
Well, it wasn't intentional, but I would notice that whenever, because there's a little bit of play with the top drive, that drive shaft, and if it scooches a little to one side, the hammer arm will actually get caught on one of the bottom legs.
Yeah.
And so that's why at the beginning of the fight, you just hear that loud noise, because it's skipping gears and it doesn't have enough. It can't catch. So I eventually tried to scooch backwards a little bit and then hope that they would catch. And then that's when I started walking.
Yeah. Well, hey, it worked out in that case, yeah.
I did get a fix in it for the second fight. I just added a little plastic shim in there in between.
Okay,
to keep it always pulled to the one side. Yep.
Yeah, to buff everything out, give the hammer some space to swing around.
Had been doing that previously, and I finally got around to fixing it. So
Hey, look, sometimes it's the little niggly things like that you just I'll fix that after I fixed all the other major isures, and then they stay in the robot forever.
It didn't help that I just left the bot at Norwalk for 2 months.
Yeah, that's it. It just been sitting on a desk there, so
Yeah. But my opponent, they were on the wait list. So they were a short notice add-in, and it was their first bot, their first build ever, and they had the drive issue, but it's just building your first bot and actually just putting it in. I have so much respect for anybody who just finally just does it, because that's the hardest part.
Oh yeah, that's agreed. And look, they did really well for a first fight with drive issues. I have seen people do a lot worse on their first fight when they put that robot in and it doesn't drive straight. That's a lot to deal with as a first-time driver. So the fact that they hung in there for the full 3 minutes.
They tipped me on my face at one point.
Yeah, that's it. They, I mean, yeah, it's hard to get your weapon engaged when your drive is out or down on one side, but they did a decent job, and they stayed
Yeah.
in, threatening areas
Yeah.
the entire fight. So, especially against two robots that really couldn't drive very well.
Yeah. Pause is a nightmare to drive. It is just so hard because it only steers when the legs are up. You can swivel fast, but you can only swivel if the legs are up. And then it's kind of tippy.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a pain to drive.
Yeah, and you don't have any position feedback on the legs, do you? So you just kind of have to like eyeball where the legs are.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
That's a lot of thinking to be doing in the middle of a fight.
I don't like doing a lot of thinking.
Yeah, that's very fair. Especially in the middle of a fight. There's not a lot of time for that in the middle of a fight.
Right. Yeah, it's the only like I just kind of chase them down. It's as soon as the fight starts, I just start shuffling across the arena as quick as I can. And the drive issues at the beginning were tricky to deal with, and then the drive issues at the end. But hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Well, hopefully with these shims in, you'll be able to avoid that for sure. I mean, do you have much weight left in Paws to add anything else into the robot, or are you like pushing weight?
At the 5-pound weight limit, I weighed in at 4.98, I think it was, or 4.99.
Right, yeah, okay. You're like a googly eye off being overweight.
Yes. There was an event where I didn't have to run. It was the first squeaky hammer. I could not have any eyes in it because the Lexan sheets for the front and the back with the eyes on the front were too heavy.
Oh, it's always sad when
but-
you have to like get rid of the fun bits to make weight.
Yeah. I needed the weight so I could put in a second squeaky hammer so I could do the 2 squeaky hammer.
Yeah. And this time you just put in a whole other mini bot with a squeaky hammer.
Exactly. So now I still had 2 squeaky hammers.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta have 2 squeaky hammers. Or 3.
Oh, yes.
That's for a future video. We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Alright, shall we move on to the next fight?
We shall.
So, next fight up is now in the bracket. This is the big leagues, for a lack of a better term, really. Having won our first fight by judge's decision, which actually, that's the other thing. We didn't know that we'd won this fight for a little while.
Right. I guess there was some sort of glitch, and in the bracket, and to the announcers, they had our opponent winning. And it was startling.
Yeah.
And then they finally updated it, and I was like, okay, I can breathe a sigh of relief now.
Yeah, because, I mean, we didn't get a decision cage side. Like, we stood there for a little bit, and then they were like, right, we need the cage, and kind of shuffled us away. So we had no idea when we came back up, and we were just, like, sitting there on our phones, like, constantly updating, checking to see if we'd got a score through yet.
Yeah, it was probably 2 or 3 fights later when we saw the result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, it must have been a close judge's decision then.
I don't know. I don't think it should have been. I mean, I lost drive at the end because they did have us do a function test.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't move forward really. And they had drive down. Half their drive was down for the... So...
But that was about all the damage, really, for the fight.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. I haven't looked at the scores, so...
Yeah. I mean, look, we won the fight, so...
Exactly.
So, yeah, with that, we're in the bracket, which means we're in single elimination territory now, and actually fighting a spinner this time. So, they have more opportunity to rip us to shreds, basically.
Yes. Especially when I saw what spinner it was and who the driver was.
Yes, well, look, any Brazilian drum spinner is a nasty, nasty machine.
Especially one driven by the driver of Black Dragon on BattleBots.
Yeah, well, you would think that he would know a thing or two about driving drum spinners, really. More than a lot of
hopefully.
people. And we're taking squeaky hammers against that.
Yes. I mean, they are quite devastating.
Oh, yeah, the emotional damage is off the charts. Like...
But yeah, that bot looked so good, and it was just, I was like, oh, this could be rough.
Mm-hmm. Admittedly, I kind of wanted it to be a little rough. Like, I'd bought 3 spare chassis for the mini-bot, and I was like, this is me testing TPU. I want to hit this guy, and I want him to be spinning as hard as he can, because I want to know how well this robot survives hitting a massive drum spinner effectively.
I did not have any spare carbon fiber bottom plates.
Oh.
And I had forgotten all of my spare body parts at my house.
Oh, right.
I knew exactly
okay.
where they were sitting. I realized it the Friday evening in the pits. I was like, oh, all of my extra body panels are at home.
Right, okay, so this fight really could have spelt disaster.
Yes.
Hmm.
But if I was going to lose, at least at single elimination, I wouldn't have had to fight again.
Very true. Very, very true.
The problem is winning a very damaging fight.
Yes. I mean, I feel like that's always a problem, and especially in an event like NHRL where people are bringing ridiculously damaging robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially once you hit the bracket.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, most people who were in the bracket, well, everybody in the bracket had won their first fight, so, you know, well.
Or won at least one.
Yeah, one at least one.
Yeah.
Had earned their way in, say that much.
And, like, with it being one of the Brazilian teams, they weren't gonna just show up in the bracket to, you know, show mercy and then somehow lose some weird way.
Oh, no. Yeah, no.
If something like that would have happened, I would have tapped out just because I wouldn't have wanted to win like that anyway.
Mm.
But every time I go in the cage, even though it's a silly robot, I always go in the box and I try to win because I owe it to my opponent for a good fight, and it's just part of the fun, just trying to win with a more fun robot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, you still got to try. I mean, because what's the point if you're not trying to win the fight? Like, it's still a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, my opponents built their robot, they showed up, and, you know, they deserve a good, hard-fought fight.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And hey, I mean, look, also, you built a robot as well. Like, it takes time and effort and energy to build these things. Like, you need to put that effort into actually fighting properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's watch this fight.
Oh, you didn't get to hear me stomp across the box again.
Yeah, they're really good at, like, starting the fights with people in squares, as it turns out.
Okay, so
I did have keep NHRL silly across the back again.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. If I didn't already have something along the back of mine, I would have put the same thing.
This is a cartoon. So you can see these two.
You added the dustpan for this one?
I did, yeah. So the first version, the first fight I didn't have the dustpan. This one, I did have the dustpan in, and I also put in 50 to 1s and 20s, and sort of the drive issue, so I actually got to drive properly this fight.
If you look close, you can see the shim on the leg next to the hammer arm up in the top.
It's awesome.
Oh yeah, you can too. It's in like a darker purple color.
I think so. I'm trying to chase him around, he's too fast.
He's so fast, and he was just like outspeeding us entirely. I could barely turn around and he'd already hit the wall on the other side of the box.
Yeah, that's where I can't self-right from.
Yeah, but you can still drive in a straight line.
what I was gonna try to do was get over to the wall
Tiny little robot,
and
intense
see if I could get
combat, kind of modeled
tipped,
after a
like have the
Wizard
wall tip me
style.
over.
See that?
Yeah, and then I was like trying to help out, but that wasn't really going well. Oh, and that's where the zip ties finally failed, when they took a direct shot from a very good drum spinner.
Pawsitively's been like moving great.
Some of the zip ties are still on there
Yeah.
right now.
Right now, you can see that.
Yeah, so it's actually not the zip ties that have failed, it's the hammer that's failed.
Just got a little mangled.
And that's
There's
where I
part of your
dropped.
hammer.
Yeah, so I specifically dropped the hammer straight into his weapon because it's a custom printed TPU squeaky hammer. I wanted to see how well it survived, and it literally just broke the glue between the two pieces of TPU, and that was it. Like, that hammer still works, I just glued it back together again.
I asked for an unstick there.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, might as well.
Yeah, might as well.
Everything's
Yeah,
still
so
working.
here, see the batteries come out?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, you don't want a lipo fire?
Ah, not with
There,
my
so
own
right.
lipos.
Then immediately right back over.
Yeah. But also, that was the killer blow too, right?
Yes. It's really funny listening to the crowd because they're like, oh, then oh.
Yeah, it's so good when a crowd gets behind the robot that you've built and have that visceral reaction when it gets knocked out.
The problem with the squeaky hammer is it doesn't do any damage.
Ah, no, that's false. They're saying on commentary that the squeaky hammers do no damage. Emotional damage is damage, damn it.
There is some psychological warfare happening there.
He was so nice too.
Oh, he was. He was so nice.
Gabriel, he's just yeah.
Hang on, we'll pause.
That sounds like a horrible thing to encourage.
Yeah, he was really nice. I mean, and I don't know that he was up to full speed ever in that fight.
I don't think he was. We both still wanted to put on a good fight, and he was hit it hard enough to put on a good fight, but he didn't destroy anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, great sportsmanship. Like, he kind of knew when I was done or stuck and would either go after you or at the end he just kind of backed off.
Yeah.
But
I mean, mostly because I'd driven into the wall. Like, he was basically going after you, and then when you were tipped over or something, he would come after me, and then when I was like, nope, I'm done because my battery's hanging out the front of the robots, he backed off
Fires
entirely.
are so much fun though.
Yeah, it's just, well, I guess if it had been a lipo fire, yeah, I wouldn't be taking that back through airport security at that point. It would have stayed in the giant bucket of dead lipos downstairs at NHRL.
Yeah.
I'll put an image of that on screen right now because I took a photo of that on my way out the door. It's chock-a-block full of dead batteries.
Yeah, a couple of them are mine. Just because I didn't leave them as a proper charge between events.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
when we got
happens.
him out, we gave him the little bit of squish, and we're like, oh, I'm not going to risk this one.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lipo fire in the pits at this event, and I did not want to be one of them.
Oh, especially not... Well, I mean, damn, like, the lipo fire that we saw at this event was ridiculous, because it was not only a 30-pound robot, it was a 30-pound shuffler, which meant that they had just, like, a giant brick of a battery in the thing.
Yeah. I think it was a 6S, and
I would not be surprised, yeah.
that made a lot of smoke.
Oh, it's so much smoke. And it was like right around lunchtime too, so it's like you can't really be sitting upstairs and eating because it's just smoke everywhere.
I've seen enough lipo fires where I'm kind of starting to like the smell.
I still remember the first time I smelt lipo smoke. I didn't know what it was because it was an ant weight that I'd built that had wires like running right into the receiver, and they'd shorted together, and the robot had stopped in the middle of the fight, and I was like, what is going on? Pulled the robot out and went, that's a weird smell. Plugged a new battery in, and the battery immediately puffed. But because the batteries are so small in 150-gram robots, it didn't catch fire. It just puffed and let out a little bit of smoke, and I smelt it and went, oh, I killed the first battery, and I'm killing this one. And yeah, I lost 2 batteries basically in a row, back to back, to the same robot, to the same wiring short right at the receiver.
Speaking of batteries, that's what killed Paws in this last fight. He hit me so hard that it unplugged the battery from the power distribution board.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Sometimes the battery flops around loose inside there because it's just held down with Velcro.
Okay.
And so the first hit, it usually starts flopping around. And then that second one, he just hit it so hard that it just unplugged it from the...
Yeah, damn, that's a hard hit. I mean, I will zip tie over like XT60 connectors in featherweights because I've had that happen in featherweights. But to do that in Beetles is like, that's a good hit.
Yeah, I think with the unintentionally with the weapon spinning slower, he was getting a lot more bite.
Oh, probably. I mean, he was also able to drive a bit better, probably with the weapon spinning a little slower too.
Yeah, so. It was such a good hit though that it was just perfect. Just hit the front, flipped it right over on its back, and
yeah, and it was a nice little like, dook.
Yep, and then just killed it right there. It was not moving anywhere. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have kept trying to move around.
Oh yeah, obviously. Like, yeah, I mean, you know, I normally would have kept trying to move around until my robot disintegrated, but as soon as the battery's exposed, I'm like, no. That's where I draw the line, really.
Yeah. I've had a battery get unplugged on me before by Seth reached in and with his SSP kit and just caught the wire in one of our fights and just gently unplugged it.
That's a really interesting way to win a fight. It's one of those like, I feel like that's one of those like robot combat memes of just like, oh yeah, we'll just like build a robot with an Allen key that will turn their switch off.
Yeah. So now it has the plate across the back. I always make sure I put it on there. It's like my anti-SSP plate, just so it doesn't happen again.
Oh, so are you running one of Seth's like wiring distribution boards?
Yes.
Yeah, see, he knew what he was looking for. He's got insider knowledge or something.
Yeah, I love those power distribution boards. They work great. And then I have the one with the power switch built into it too.
That would be handy. Having to have the power switch off and elsewhere is, well, I mean, it can be handy depending on how you're building the robot and how much space you've got inside it. But when you've got something like Paws and you can just put an entire power distribution board with your switch.
Yeah, it's used to be mounted to the bottom, but I made the mistake of forgetting that carbon fiber is conductive.
Oh yeah.
And I shorted an ESC and a receiver out one day because I had entirely forgotten it, and so now it's just mounted on the Lexan back plate. That's just in those big gaps, and that hasn't failed me yet.
Yeah, in fact, I think looking at the photo behind you, we can kind of see it over your shoulder there. There's just like a little bank of yellow, which would be your power distribution board XT connectors.
Right. Oh.
Yep.
Right,
Ghost finger.
Yes. Yep. They're just screwed into the polycarbonate, and
hey, look, if it works.
It's easy to turn it off because I don't have to tip it forward anymore.
Yeah, well, that is always a good thing. The less you have to manipulate your robot to turn it off, the better, I feel, personally. Yeah. But I also one of my favorite things about this fight is just that like one of the guys commentating at the very start of the fight is just like, these are cartoon robots, and then the end of the fight happens in this kind of like perfectly cartoony way where you get this really perfect pop up, and then Paul's just like flops on its back and dies.
Yes.
That's such a cartoon robot death, and it just happened in this fight.
Yeah, it was so good. The timing was great. It's probably one of my favorite fights with Paws.
Yeah. Oh, that honestly, that was a great. It was one of my favorite fights for the weekend. I think. Yeah. I mean, even with the fights with the Melty, that was pretty high up there as a fight. So.
And I never even got a single hammer hit in.
Ah, I did straight into the weapon. Bang.
I was chasing him around, but you don't. It's hard to chase fast robots down with Paws.
Well, oh look, he had the speed over both of us. My 50-1 N20s were not keeping up with that.
There's a part near the beginning where he kind of goes flying into the corner and he's bouncing around. And I just immediately turn. I'm like, maybe this is my shot to go in and start smacking him with the hammer. But he got right up and just took right back off again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is what speedy bots do.
Yeah. I know nothing about speedy bots.
I mean, I do a little bit, but only when you get them spinning fast.
Yes.
So only when they're fast in a circle. That's the only time I know about speedy robots.
Yeah. Paws will go pretty quick on the center pivot, but it's really hard to control it.
I would love to see you do that though, as like a victory dance at one point. Just sit there in the middle of the arena, like full speed, spinning paws and just hammering the weapon up and down.
I have a tendency to go after the house bots.
Ah, nice. Yeah. See, that's one of the things that I regret not doing, because I didn't find out until after I was there that there was like money for turning the Bretts off.
Yes.
See, if I'd known that, I think I would have modified one of the versions of Squeakamus Maximus to turn off a Brett, or at least to try anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the blue motor I was running would have had the torque to turn off one of those switches, but
I've seen it done all 3 times.
okay.
I think I've been at each of the events, and it's such a blast whenever it happens.
What happens after that point? Because like Brett is used to unstick, and like we had the unstick in this fight with a Brett. If you turn the Brett off and need an unstick, does it just not happen?
You don't get your unstick.
Oh, okay. So it's a bit of like risk reward thing, really.
I think that's why Kevin was trying it in one of his fights later in the night.
Mm-hmm.
So that if besides the money, but if you can turn him off, and with a control bot, all he had to do is try to tip him in a spot, and he would have only had to do it once instead of having to do it 2 times like normal.
Very true. And I mean, he is one of the people who has turned off a Brett, so
Yeah.
It
was great to watch.
Was that event that he like the most recent event he turned?
It was that event.
It was that event.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because see, I didn't see that live. I saw that in shorts afterwards.
Yeah. And then Business Cat turned off the other one the once before. And I can't remember who it was who did the first one, but it was purely by accident. They went flying and they took a weird bounce off the wall, and they just happened to hit the switch on the back and turn it off.
Did they?
And that was back when you won the fight and you got the money.
Oh, right. Okay. Wow, that's big to be able to win the fight just by turning the Brett off. Like, I feel like if that was still the rule, you would get so many more people building robots that literally just have a switch turn off mechanism on them.
The house bots get angry, and they're not nice to you when you start picking on them.
I I have seen them. I have seen them get angry. A video that's not yet released at time of recording, but will be by the time this comes out. Had a housebot get angry in it, and yeah, those things have got some go in them when they really decide they're going after a robot.
With my previous bot, first drink of the day, I went after the house bot in one of my fights, and it ended up breaking off both of my wheel guards, tipping me over, pinning me in a corner.
Wow. Okay. Maybe I need to rethink the idea of going after the housebots.
And they have long memories.
I can imagine. Yeah. Especially if you do it so well that you end up, having shorts and stuff made of you. I'm sure that they'll paint a big target on your back for the next events.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to make them that mad.
Maybe.
Maybe with a geared down enough lifter.
So you can lift the Brett over.
Yes.
I mean, I did get told that the Bretts in the 3-pound cages are like 60 pounds or something. That's ridiculous for a 3-pounder to try and lift.
I think it's possible. It would just be really slow.
It would be really slow. You'd almost need like a crusher mechanism inverted to do the lift of a Brett.
Maybe I have another silly project ahead of me.
Well, let me know if you do that and you want a mini bot. You can build the robot that tips the Brett over, and I can build a mini bot that comes along and turns it off while it's on its side or on its back or something.
Get around back and just tip it over.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I know how you do it. The jackpot mini bot style, like forks out rotating forks lifter.
Oh, the cam lifter?
The cam lifter. Because those get a surprising amount of force for not a lot of gear reduction.
He got, when he was at the previous event, when Supreme Ruler won, he was able to get under the house bot and get it up off its wheels a couple times.
I'm not surprised. That cam lifter design, you can lift a beetle weight with an N20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The gearing that you get on that is ridiculous. Like, that is how you do that for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, see, now too many bad ideas.
And look, I think at that we have wandered way far off the topic of talking about our fights at NHRL, but that was good fun to sit here and chat with you about this.
Yes.
And yeah, thanks again for letting me run a mini bot, and also sitting at the same pit table as me at NHRL. It made it a great weekend. I honestly had so much fun.
Thanks for driving it for me, because it was a blast. And the dual squeaky hammers, I don't think it can be topped.
Well, maybe 3, but
Maybe 3.
But yes, 2 squeaky hammers, so much better than 1 squeaky hammer at all times. So
Yes.
That was good fun. Thank you so much again, and thank you for coming on the channel and reviewing these fights, because this was great fun, and there was some really great fun fights. Is there anything you'd like to shout out? Any links that you'd like people to follow you at or anything like that?
I don't think I have any. Just thanks to my wife for putting up with my ridiculous hobby and being very, very tolerant.
I mean, she is tolerant, but she's also a really good builder in her own right. I mean, her own robot fought at NHRL and did pretty well for a first time.
She got roofed and she loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. All right, I think that is where we're going to leave this one. Thank you so much again, and thank you out there for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, give it a like or something, and I'll see you in the next one.